Get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a
Welcome to Tales from the Field. My name is Bradley Ball, and it is so good to have you with us. We are back and better than ever. Last week, Andreas Padilla and Neeraj Jhaveri delivered Azure Machine Learning and Responsible AI Framework. Then on Tuesday, we had our Azure Data Community Roundtable. And then on Wednesday, we released Microsoft Fabric Warehouse Sharing Security and Permissions. So much great stuff. And then on Monday, this Monday, Neeraj Jhaveri was back again with Microsoft Fabric and how to use clone table in your data warehouse. So much to do, so much to see, and you don't want to miss a thing. If this is your first time making it over to Tales from the Field, give us a like and give us a subscribe. We are live on and streaming on our home for Tales from the Field on YouTube right now. If you would like to interact with the show, it is so easy to do so. All you have to do is add a comment, and when you add the comment, one of my amazing co-hosts will see that comment, and they will add it to the show, and you will be a part of the event. And of course, before we go any further, let me introduce those amazing co-hosts of mine. I am joined by Daniel Taylor, Andreas Padilla, Josh Ludeman, and it's a Barbie world, but it's his universe. It's your friend and mine, Neeraj Jhaveri. Neeraj, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. If you were going to put me on a Barbie, I would have wear a pink shirt.
Yeah, I was going to say, where's the pink? Brad's got the pink.
Yeah. No, look, I got plenty of pink shirts. Some people call it salmon, but I'm not afraid to rock pink. So why are we here? Let's talk about this real quick because we want to make sure that you understand. Hey, Belkis, great to see you again. This is the Azure Data Community Roundtable. This is for the Azure Data Community, by the Azure Data Community, because we are a part of it, and for the Azure Data Community. And so one of the things that we want to talk about real quick is if you are looking for how you join that Azure Data Community, just go to Microsoft.com or Google or Bing, either one. They're both good, right? The Azure Data Community, and you will find it. And there is an option right here to be able to find a user group and to be able to find one in your area. So that way you can find a local user group to your city. But also we have some wonderful things. SQLSaturday.com is a list of the SQL Saturday events and conferences that are available free and to the community. You don't want to pass these up. You're going to have your top MVPs at this. You're going to have very active content creators within the data community. You're going to have folks from Microsoft who are there. And I know a big example of that is SQL Saturday Orlando, where myself and Buck Woody will be doing a Microsoft Fabric pre-con. A lot of great stuff. We've got submissions in. We're going to see who from Tales from the Field makes it, and we're going to see who's presenting there. And then, of course, there's also Data Saturday, which, as you can see, goes to many, many places around the world. It is a vibrant and active Azure data community. We want to make sure that you are a part of it. And there are so many wonderful ways to get involved. A quick welcome to Dan Taylor, who has officially joined us 100% of the time and will be on the live show. Congratulations, Dan. Glad to have you here with us, buddy.
Thanks. It's an honor to be here with all these smart people. Y'all lift me up and y'all brighten my day, and I'm glad to be here rather than chiming in the background. Glad to be here permanently.
Glad to have you, buddy. Andreas, you were on vacation last week. How was it?
Oh, beach and sand and boats, my friend. Beach, boats and sand. That's what it was. I had a great time. Good to be back and good to be here with Dan. Dan's my number one now.
Excellent. I'm going to play around.
You guys.
There we go.
Dan up here. You guys remember.
Well, what about Neeraj? Neeraj has to be like way above Dan, right?
Oh, Neeraj is up here.
Okay, yeah. Well, that makes sense. That checks out.
So it's just the two of us, Brad. It's just, we're
I'm in good company. My buddy and his hats. I was going to say nobody rocks them better. All right, speaking of wonderful things that you want to rock, we are going to jump right into it because we have a jam-packed roundtable with a ton of links for you today. First, though, we are going to start off with an honorable mention, the Microsoft Fabric Learning Group. So the Microsoft Fabric Learning Group is something that all of us on Tales from the Field are a part of, as well as the Microsoft Fabric product group as well, and you want to go and you want to join this because it's a wonderful place for you to be able to find the different links that are posted, different resources that people are putting together, so many wonderful creators from the community, some of whom you're going to see their links here today on the show, and they are all in one place. So as we are all learning and growing with Microsoft Fabric, this is a wonderful community for you to go and join. Speaking of wonderful things, first up, I have Mr. Wonderful himself, Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. Neeraj, you have data pipelines tutorial, ingest files into a lakehouse from a REST API with pagination.
So, I mean, the POC or the thing that Sean is mentioning in this blog is related to Viva Data Hub, but this can be used for anything, right? I mean, you can bring data using the REST API, where he's going on the consideration, is giving all the consideration that needs to be taken care of it. Then he's going over the design pattern, how to do the whole stuff in there. And then he's showing one by one how to create that pipeline. Very nicely written down a blog. He shows you step by step how you can connect to the Data Hub, get the pipeline moving in there, and then how you can ingest the data into your Fabric environment. Very nicely written thing, maybe a video in future, which I think we should be creating up, but that is definitely something that I liked it. I mean, if you're new to Fabric or you're new to ADF pipelines and all this creation, a very nicely written blog using REST API that can create bringing data into your Fabric environment.
I love it. It's great. It's very, very detailed. It's a wonderful process, and it's very easy for people to be able to follow. This is some great stuff, and kudos, Sean. Very, very nice job. Speaking of someone who did a nice job, I am up next, and I have Dipti Gorgis, DBA Nuggets over on Twitter, and I would assume she probably has the same name over on Threads, or I guess we call it X now. I'm still calling it Twitter, because I'm an old man and I don't like change. But what I do like about this change is I like the capability to have Arc-enabled SQL Server. This was introduced in SQL Server 2022. And if you don't know what this is a wonderful introductory article that walks you through how to be able to take a look at this, but it shows how you can keep an inventory of your SQL instances in Azure, how this connects you to Azure, and how it gives part of that intelligent data collection capabilities for you to be able to report off and have. And keep in mind, this is your data. This is not Microsoft's data. When you put this plugin in place, this is your data and you control this data, but it also makes it to where you can deploy services like Microsoft Defender for Cloud. If I said, for $10 a month, I can have denial of service protection, I can have, SQL injection security and alerting capabilities put on every single server in your environment, and you can enroll things that are in your production instances as long as they're running 2022 and they're Arc-enabled. Well, that's just a fantastic process and a great deal. So one of the things you want to understand is, what does this do? What does this offer you? Is this right for you? Because if you're not running SQL Server 2022, you don't have these same capabilities. But this is a great and wonderful breakdown of this service. Very, very nice job, Deepthi.
Yep. And well, before we continue, just real quick, Azure Arc-enabled SQL Server, I love it. Yes, it's great on 2022. It still has some good capabilities for allowing you to manage your SQL Server from Azure, even though it's not necessarily there. So I encourage everybody to look at it. It's more innovative in the way that it really, the idea of the service understands how we all run today, which is not necessarily everything in the cloud. So,
absolutely, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Speaking of wonderful stuff, next up I have Mr. Dan Taylor, and Dan, you have multi-cloud analytics with Microsoft Fabric and OneLake by Tamarick Hill.
Yeah, so found Tamarick in our new fiber. Oh my Lord, I need more fiber. Our new Fabric group there on LinkedIn. And where Tamarick goes from end to end is he starts with OneLake, then he joins an ADLS Gen 2, then he joins an AWS S3 bucket, creates a data model, and shows a report for our executives on top of it. A true multi-cloud solution in Fabric. I mean, we're one of the few, if not the only, that have that. So I love this video, and I wanted to rise it up for Tamarick and share it with the folks.
Very, very nice. No, I love that. And I saw Tamarick post that early on in the group. I think I reshared it. I know I at least liked it. If I haven't reshared it, I will definitely do it. But you want to go check this out. Tamarick is pretty new on the scene, and we definitely recognize that. We're not even a year into existing yet. And so kudos to him and the hard work that he's been doing. This is a great video, and it's a very, very nice job walking through that. So great job, Tamarick. Good find, Dan. Absolutely love that stuff. Speaking of lovely, I have Mr. Andreas Padilla up next. Andreas, you have an amazing introduction to OpenAI and architecture patterns. And this is by, this is by our good friend Shep Shepherd. Absolutely. I love it.
Oh, it's a great video by Shep Shepherd. Shep, kudos to you, bud, for a great post and some great, direction and links to great tutorials here. Shep has an awesome GitHub repo where you can get started. I want you to watch this video. You'll be in and out in about 20 minutes at 2x speed. He takes us to what are the important links you want to know about OpenAI, where you can get started, some useful repos. But what I love is how he shows us the different architectural patterns, the RAG patterns, how to maintain session state with Cosmos DB, how to get into vector databases with OpenAI. And then if you don't know where to start, I want you to go to the Jupyter Notebook samples, and there's some great demo samples there. That's where I think everybody, if you're trying to get into the RAG pattern of combining OpenAI with your own data, using that RAG architecture, go to those Jupyter Notebook, start that, just put in your configuration, your Azure OpenAI keys and configurations and endpoint, and you'll be off and running with a notebook in 5 minutes. That will help you clear up a lot of the clutter that's out there if you just do that notebook. Shep, thank you for this.
Awesome. That is just great. I was going to say, Shep is a great dude. Wonderful, wonderful work. I love it. Again, speaking of something that I just love so much, we have Mr. Josh Ludeman, I was going to say the Quan of Hat himself.
Quan of Hat?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was going to say.
I don't think I can rise to that one. I think that one's actually far outstretched of my reach. I can't.
I'm gonna call you up one day, and I'm gonna be playing the music in the background. I'm just gonna be like, I just need you to do one thing. Show me the hat. Show me the hat.
I just actually had to look that word up on my phone. So.
All right. So, Josh, you have understanding Azure Data Collection Endpoint. Tell me, what is this about?
So this one gets a little bit deeper, and so I'm not going to dig into this because this isn't an article for everybody, just because it talks about collecting logs from services when you have network isolation requirements, right? So being able to collect them into a log analytics workspace when you can't exactly have those logs traversing, the open web and things like that. So think of this for those here in the forum as private endpoints for log collection, right? So it's allowing you to keep it on the private network, send it to these endpoints so that it can then be collected into log analytics. So really right there you go. It's, really the two specific scenarios, network isolation and sending data to custom logs in log analytics where you need that network isolation. So, really, I'm not going to go into too much technical depth with this, but if you have a, necessity for that log collection, when you need that network isolation, it's a really good article on it. Morton's actually an MVP in the security and, kind of core spaces. So, I just came across this, honestly, doing a search for something completely different and just fell into a rabbit hole. So I wanted to share.
Yeah, a lot of love to our MVPs out there. It's a lot of hard work to become an MVP and also to maintain it. So appreciate the hard work. And as much as we go, it's not for everybody. You're absolutely right. But I can think of a lot of enterprise customers that would go, that is for me. And I need that specifically because our security is really tight. Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
No problem. All right. Up next, of course, the man who needs no introduction himself, Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. You have Powering the Future of Analytics, Microsoft and Databricks.
So, I mean, one of the biggest questions that everybody is asking out there is Microsoft going to be going away with Databricks? No, that is not the case. Microsoft started the intelligent data platform from almost a year now, and then Fabric was introduced in May, but Databricks is still a partner with Microsoft. They still go ahead. That's exactly Databricks moved to the next level, and they both were partnered it together. Now, just because the Fabric layer is always on the one lake, which can be accessed from Databricks directly, you can still continue doing your Databricks pipelines, make your notebooks and everything work on the same platform using the same data storage that you are having in Fabric or anywhere else you are using it up. And to add to that, what Pablo is saying to it is saying Databricks and Microsoft was very strong now because they are in the same scenario. They are doing the Lakehouse architecture, Medallion architecture, using the Delta and the Parquet files. So they remain in the same way they are going forward to it. And he also brings good partnership because he shows at the bottom of it where you should see it like Satya presenting. I mean, he already presented out in the Data AI Summit this year as a keynote speaker on that. So the partnership with Databricks and Microsoft continues the same way, and there is no changes to it. Just both the product have gone to a next level. I mean, Microsoft introduced Fabric, Databricks has introduced all these new features in their side, which has gone to the new level of analytics in that scenario.
Well, and as I was skimming it as we were going through, there's a point that they make when they talk about our partnership, which is that the Databricks can access the APIs for OneLake.
Yes.
And so just like you can access Blob via an API and a URL to be able to access your data in Blob storage today in Databricks, you can also do that with Microsoft Fabric. So these two things are tied together. Continue to use what works for you, right? I have customers who have invested a lot of time with Databricks, and they are very familiar and comfortable with it. And the question that you sometimes get is, well, do I need to change everything now? And it's like, well, only if it's really worth it, right? Like you have to look at what you're doing. If you're already using something, I'm a big fan of the philosophy of if it's not broke, don't fix it. And if you're using something and it's working for you and there is not a business driver to do it, I'm not a fan of change for change.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is a driver, absolutely make that change. But there is no reason to change what you're doing just because of these two products. As a matter of fact, we've got great integration already built into them. All right. Oh, same thing has happened again. We start talking, Microsoft stock goes up. I mean, look, I'm just saying, maybe there's a key. I was going to say, Satya, if you want to put a bigger check in the mail, none of us will say no to that. None of us, we're all okay with that.
I'm not saying it's our fault, but yeah, it, twice now. Let's see, third time. I mean, that's something.
Doesn't hurt. I'm going to include that in my performance review next time, Josh. Whenever we're live, Microsoft stock goes up.
Absolutely.
All right, I am up next, and I found this to be an absolutely fantastic and really interesting concept. So Ashul Sharma, he is in the product group at Microsoft for Fabric for the KQL portion and the real-time streaming. And I just did a video on this not too long ago, and he has a fantastic blog about how you can do real-time monitoring of the International Space Station with Microsoft Fabric. He shows how a logical diagram of it, but then he literally goes end to end to be able to pull in the data and then show how to be able to render it. And I thought, oh, this is so unbelievably cool. So one of the things I'm going to tell you right now, it's not this week's video, because I have a blog coming up I'm going to show you that is an inspiration for this week's video, but this is definitely an inspiration. If no one else has done this by the time I get there, I'm doing this. And he also has a video on how you're going to do this, but I want to be able to do it just to say, and to be able to construct and show, yeah, we can track the ISS and its movements. And how unbelievably cool is that? I love real world data, real world demos. That was a lot of fun when I came across that. All right. Speaking of a lot of fun, it's an interesting song, but the title of this, Dan, it's really interesting. Killing Me Softly has Microsoft Fabric just overridden Synapse Analytics.
So one thing I want to call out real quick, Belkis, I know you're watching. The stock's gone up when you've attended the show. So you need to attend every week now. I'm just looking at patterns, at patterns. So this is great, right? So you've heard from us, right? You've heard from us Microsofties, right? That Fabric, Synapse isn't going away. I saw this article about a month and a half ago by Nikolai, and I thought it was a very thoughtful, put together piece about somebody's MVP's perspective of Synapse and Fabric and where Microsoft is going with that. And it's not a deep technical read. It's just a good thought piece on what Synapse brings to the table, what Fabric brings to the table, and where Nikolai thinks both are going and how you may want to use one or the other. Back to what you were talking about, Databricks is not going away, right? Use the tool that's right for you. So I thought this was just a really good, thoughtful piece by Nikolai sharing his thoughts on where he thinks Fabric is going in the future of Synapse.
And it's a fascinating thing to speculate on, right? But we know that there's a long-term roadmap for Synapse. We know there's a long-term roadmap for Microsoft Fabric. So my belief is that we're going to see things coexisting. The way when we've had discussions with the product group, somebody's phone is buzzing. That was super close to the camera. But when we've had discussions with the product group, one of the things that we very specifically talk about is the SaaSification that is Microsoft Fabric, right? You're not tweaking the knobs underneath the covers, but you have the capability to be able to do that with dedicated workloads. And I liken this very much to people who use SaaS, people who use PaaS, to people that adopt the cloud. The analogy I've always used is it's expensive to drive a car in New York. There is a robust mass transit system. There are tons of taxis and Ubers. However, people still own cars in New York. And they're going to continue to own cars in New York. So there are going to be people who run things on-prem. There are going to be people who prefer PaaS to SaaS. And I think that one of the things you're finding is, sure, there's a ton of attention. This is the new kid on the block. There's a lot of really cool features and work being done on this. But you're going to find that there are going to be people who really want a PaaS product, and there's going to be people who want a SaaS product. And I think it just behooves us to understand that one doesn't overtake the other. It's just another choice that we have on the menu.
And I am hearing with some of my customers I'm still doing Synapse deployments with, right? Analytics, workspaces. They're like, geez, we've been looking at Fabric, and it's really something we want to consider in the future because we don't want to have to do these things. We don't want to spin up clusters. We don't want to spin up dedicated pools. We need our data in one place. So they're loving it, right? So they're starting to go, maybe.
Interesting. Yeah. And I mean, it's an architectural conversation that every customer is going to have. Speaking of conversations that we have to have, next up, we've got our good buddy, Andres Padilla. Andreas, you've got Modern Data Warehouse Stories by Marcelo Silva.
Great article, quick read. I love how Marcelo here takes us through 3 different scenarios, one with an airline, one with a medical research company, and another one with an insurance company. He details a little bit of what he found when dealing with Synapse for the different scenarios, which I loved, and is different in his take on the evolution. But what I really liked was all the great goodies at the bottom of the article on how when to choose column store, what are some of the headaches that you'll find with Delta, and the advantages of taking advantage of partition pruning to make sure that your operations are more efficient. That's what I loved at the very end of this article. Thank you for those extra tidbits, Marcelo. Really appreciate it.
Very, very nice work, Marcelo. Marcelo is one of our colleagues on the Fast Track product group. So very, very nice job. I love the use of imagery in there, and just the theme of it, kind of telling 3 different stories. I'm looking forward to grabbing that link. As a matter of fact, I threw that on another screen, and I will be reading that afterwards. I always love when you guys bring stuff that I haven't read, because I'm like, ooh, new material to read. This is great. Speaking of great, we cannot ignore the man in the room, and he is Mr. Josh Ludeman. And you have Microsoft Fabric shortcuts and table clones.
Yeah, so this one I brought because when you first read the title, you're like, shortcuts and table clones. So I'm going to get table clones and some other shortcuts? No, he actually is comparing shortcuts with table clones. So comparing shortcuts to data that you can store in your OneLake, or cloning the data into your OneLake, some of the trade-offs in there. I'm not going to give away all the secrets, but he really gets into, the trade-offs between table clones or shortcuts, which one's better for which one's situations, different limitations, links to the docs, all kinds of good stuff in there. Great article to check out, especially if you're starting to get into that early architecture journey of what you're going to do with Fabric, how you're going to store your data in OneLake. This is a great article to read through, get a full understanding.
And a quick shout out, because we've got a great video by Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri on table clones that was introduced just this Monday. Yep. And I loved it because Neeraj did something in there that I hadn't even thought about doing. He creates a schema, and then he assigns a table clone to that schema, which is funny because I think it was the very next day I was in a customer meeting and the customer asked me, hey, can you create schemas in the data warehouse? And I went, yes. As a matter of fact, my good friend just made a video with an example of doing exactly that.
So I also wasn't sure. I was like playing around. I'm like, can I create a schema? And it just came up accidentally. So yep, you can create schema in Microsoft Fabric.
Very, very nice. Well,
it's almost like that article was planned with the video drop of Neeraj's on Monday.
Strange coincidences, right? Do we have some kind of, we need some UFO music, right? All right. So speaking of out of this world, next up we have Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri exploring Microsoft Fabric and its impact on Power BI.
So Power BI became yesterday was Power BI's birthday. It was introduced on 24th July 2015. So probably 8 years now. So one of the question came up this week with one of my customer was, what happens to Power BI? Nothing happens to Power BI. Power BI still remains the top quadrant on BI tools and for analytics. So they still remain as Power BI. They don't have to make any changes to your Power BI. If you have Power BI license, you automatically get Power Fabric license. But because you have Power BI, you get more add-ons to it. You can start creating data lakes. You can start creating lake houses. You can do robust data engineering in there. And SQL endpoints are now available. Data modeling on the web is available. So all that cool things that anyone Copilot is coming in. So every single thing that you are not able to do on analytical side on Power BI now has all that because of Fabric coming into it. But for your Power BI, I mean, people out there who loves Power BI and likes to play around with it, your Power BI remains the same way as it's going. It just keeps on expanding your use cases.
Excellent. Well, and this article is by Stephanie Bruno, who is one half of the Data Wishes, and we love Steph Bruno so much. We've had her content on here before, and I love this call out that she makes, because this is one of the biggest things that people are going to need to keep in mind with Microsoft Fabric and the way that it affects Power BI is the direct lake mode. This will be the new mode that is the system of choice moving forward for new reporting structures. Now, keep in mind, if you built something in the past with a Power BI data set, you would have to change to take advantage of this. So we always have to weigh the new and the change with the effort that we're going to have to put into it. Mm-hmm. But this direct lake mode is something really, really special where you get the power of an auto refresh on a data set and the power of direct query all in one location. So we don't have to have the data duplication of that import of that data model. I mean, I love it, Neeraj. This is such great stuff. Oh, and let's see, reading your comments about partnership with data, people are interested to hear more on Snowflake's partnership with Microsoft as well. A lot of news. I don't know that we have anything about this time around. Does anybody have anything they wanted to add to that?
I need to check that out.
Yeah, I need to get deeper into that before I start talking about it here.
I was going to say, I played around with Snowflake a little bit, and Koen Verbeek, I want to say, had a great blog that we had on the show some months back. Specifically, it was a Snowflake tutorial, an introduction to. I believe that was him. I'll have to go back and dig that up. But there was a great series. I remember it was on MS SQL Tips. And it broke down. I may be attributing the wrong person, though. I'll want to double check that. But it broke down a step-by-step of how to utilize Snowflake. If we've got some new partnership information, that's really cool. I'd love to look at that.
Sure.
So I'm up next, and this was something I absolutely loved. So Pratim Dasgupta does a beautiful, beautiful blog, and this is over on TechNet. This is going to be my inspiration for the video tomorrow. This is bring your mainframe, DB2, and OS data to Microsoft Fabric. But the really neat thing is he's using a data gateway to be able to pull on-premise data into Fabric. Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of great things coming down the pipeline that make this a lot easier, but I didn't even know you could do this. I was amazed last week when he came out with this blog and someone from the product group shared it with me. And I went, this is just mind blowing that we have the capability using Dataflows Gen 2 to be able to pull in data. Now, the neat thing about this is he goes end to end because his end goal is not just Fabric. His end goal is getting it in Fabric, but also putting it over an Azure data SQL database to be able to use that as his log comparison repository for some Power BI reports. I just want to be able to get my SQL Server 2022 data into Fabric, and that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. But this was a great blog, and he walks through how to be able to do this. A lot of great information about how to be able to set this up and configure it. I love detailed blogs that have a lot of screenshots because I am a simple man, and this is no exception. This is going to walk you through, if you're looking at how to do this, it's going to walk you through that end-to-end process. It's amazing. And speaking of amazing, we have Mr. Dan Taylor, and just segueing perfectly into this, what are Dataflows Gen 2 in Fabric?
You know, that previous article, Brad, warms my heart because if you know, I started in PL1 COBOL with some DB2 on the mainframe. So yeah, I'm old. But I love this article. So this is by Martha, right? Great article. So there's things that we're strong in and things we always want to learn. Dataflows is one of those things I want to learn. I don't work with it a lot. I found this article extremely insightful, and we don't have to go too deep if you stay at the bullet points, right? So folks can go through this because I don't want to drain the whole article, but goes through what are data flows, what the differences are, your output, your integration, some of the new improved things with the data flows in Gen 2, how you set the data flow up, when you should use it, and then when you should use Dataflows Gen 2 in Fabric, and when you should use Dataflows just Gen 2 in general. And then Martha also shares the things that we can do today and some things that she's found that with Gen 1 we were used to be able to do, and that we hopefully will do in the future. So great article. I want to walk end to end through this, but this could be a video that inspires me as well. Some basics on data flows, right? Because it's a great article. It really inspired me. That's why I loved it. Also, Martha is another MVP of the community.
Martha, great job. Thank you so much for the blog. I love the representation that we've got, and also I love the great work. It's also inspiring, right? We keep reading these things. It makes me want to go out and play with it. I'm super excited for that. Speaking of what I'm super excited for, I'm super excited for Andreas Padilla to cover functions calling is now available in the Azure OpenAI service.
No, I'm excited about this too, Brad. I couldn't sleep last night because of this. Function calling is now available in Azure and OpenAI service, and it's pretty awesome. So if you have scenarios where you want to combine your prompt and use a function, a built-in function, you build a function, you combine it with your prompt, and maybe combine it with some data sources or APIs, or integrate it with other systems or tools, or maybe you want to create some structured output from your prompt. Now I can create functions, I can control how they're called, and combine them with my prompt to call those underlying ChatGPT models. So this is going to give people a lot more flexibility and power right under the hood.
Absolutely. No, this is great. This is wonderful. It's very detailed, and it's got some great examples of how to be able to make these calls and also what the response are. Speaking of great and very detailed, once again, I find myself going, last but not least, we are at the man, Josh Ludeman. And he's got advanced analytics. I love these folks. I got to hang out with them over at SQL Bits. There's so many great people on this team. but Microsoft Fabric and end-to-end implementation.
Yeah. So, and I think I've talked about this on the show before. One of my big pet peeves when new technology comes out is we get a lot of this is how to start using it. We don't get a lot of good end-to-end. This is how you should use it. These are the best practices along the way, stuff like that. And so this one from Jordan and Advancing Analytics in the UK, they go through an entire end-to-end solution where they're pulling in a data set. They're going to do some work in Dataflows, bringing it together, do a little bit of work in some queries, things like that, setting it up in a pipeline, really take it from end to end, including data validation, all that sort of thing, using notebooks. For me, it was like, okay, all these different concepts. Now I'm starting to see how they come together. For me, these end-to-end blogs are great for all of that.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it how they use a data pipeline to be able to have their gold environment and another environment as well that they're putting into, which makes it very realistic because customers always want to know, okay, I've got this one lake, right? How do I balance my folder structures? How do I get the data from one place to another? Because even though we're vastly reducing the amount of data duplication that's required in prod, you've still got to get to that prod level before we can just start loading tables in a data warehouse and linking to it over in a lake house.
Completely agree. Yeah, that's why I love this stuff. It fills in the blanks that everybody else has to worry about past the just turn it on.
All right. Well, I was going to say that's everything that we have as far as the links for the content creators. I did not get a chance to fill this out on the YouTube site beforehand, but I guarantee you the second that this is done, I will be heading over there. I will add every single link. So if there was a link you liked on today's show, if you're not watching this live, if you're watching the recording, check it out in the description because every single one of them is there for you to go take a look at and check out these great creators. We've got a couple of events coming up. We've got Future Data Driven. I've got a session with my good buddy, Josh Ludeman. Andreas has a session, Neeraj has a session, Dan has a session. So you want to check out the Future Data Driven Conference. It's going to be in September. It is online, so there's no travel required. It's very easy for you to be able to attend. In October at SQL Saturday Orlando, myself and Buck Woody will be having a Microsoft pre-con. And then the next month in Orlando, Florida, we have SQL Live 360 where myself, Josh Ludeman, Neeraj Jhaveri, and Buck Woody will all be there. And we will be, Josh, give it to me quickly, where?
Universal Studios Orlando, Florida, on the beautiful grounds of the Lowe's Royal Pacific Resort and Conference Center. Bam.
You changed it, man. You're not going to get that. You changed it.
We're a little over today, but we're experimenting with the format a little bit. But don't forget that we have content that drops tomorrow, and we have our Tuesday roundtable next week. If you have content you have created as a member of the community, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Threads. Hit us up on LinkedIn. Hit us up in the channel. We want to be able to feature your content if you're doing the hard work to get it out there. There's a story in every single one of you, and we want to help tell it. Guys, anything I'm forgetting?
I just wanted to give a quick kudos, teammate Brad. Loved your short from Universal Videos. Folks, if you haven't got it, see what we do after hours. It was a good video. Yeah. Good reach.
And Brad keeps saying, hit us up with any of your content, or if you feel so inclined, just drive by Brad's house and just hit him. Whatever works. Whatever works for you.
I was going to say, Josh does that every now and then. I hear the doorbell and I'm like, oh, is it a package? Like, I probably deserve that. Probably deserve that. All right. Be good to one another out there. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
There you guys.
Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.